Guess who's Bizak? ColumbianExchange.com. The freshest drip on the... Guess who's Bizak? ColumbianExchange.com. The freshest drip on the internet. Shirts with a spell is now live. Go to Columbian Exchange with an X.com or click the link in the description. The new line, last place. The last shall be first, but for a limited time only. 20% for all subscribers with the code 2020. Columbian Exchange is back. Get there now. Peace to the family. This is the Hood Mystic representing www.hoodmystic.com. This is the Stranger Than Fiction episode 10. We're dealing with a lot, but first and foremost, just want to alert the family to the merch. Visit the links in the description, columbianexchange.com. Got some new exciting stuff down there. Join our email list to get monthly meditations. That link is in the description. Manipulating the Matrix. How to read natal charts easily and effectively. Follow me on Instagram for daily energy readings. Updated my website, www.hoodmystic.com. And for all donations, please utilize the links in the description. Just want to thank everybody for joining me. Got a lot to talk about. So since I have a lot to talk about, I'm going to just kind of go through this information really fast. It's broken up into two parts, where it's the entertainment part and then it's the legal part, but it's all centered in the truth is stranger than fiction. And give me 1 second. So yeah, man, I'm happy to be here, and I'm gonna start it off with this video from George Lucas signing over to Disney. 1 second.
So, when I need to grow my business, I use Fiverr. I found a designer for my logo, a programmer for my website, writers for my content. There are tons of talented freelancers in over 150 categories, and you don't need endless meetings or price negotiations. It's nothing complicated. Just search, click, and you're done. I love the results so much, I even got...
Today, I am proud to announce the Walt Disney Company is acquiring Lucasfilm, the global entertainment company founded by George Lucas and the home of the legendary Star Wars franchise. Fans can expect a new feature film, Star Wars Episode 7, in theaters worldwide in 2015. And there will be more feature films, as well as consumer products, television projects, games, and theme park attractions.
We've, got a plan for 7, 8, and 9, which is the end of the trilogy, and other films also. So we have a large group of ideas and characters and books and all kinds of things. We could go on making Star Wars for the next 100 years.
So peace. So Star Wars, George Lucas, Disney is in Florida. Like I said, I'm going to go through this information kind of fast, but utilize the links in the descriptions to kind of go through this in your own time. But for time's sake, I'm trying to really go through a lot of information real fast. So I apologize if I'm going too fast. I'll save some time at the end to kind of regroup and then see where everybody at, see if it made sense. But starting off with George Lucas teaming up with Disney being in Florida, and the truth is being stranger than fiction. In this series, we detail a lot of things about the subconscious of certain individuals based on ancestry and them having to tell these stories. And they can't really point their ancestors in a bad light. So instead of it being like some historical real type deal, they put the shit in space or with aliens and things of that nature to kind of throw you off the scent of the real story. But the truth is often stranger than fiction. We just referenced the present day George Lucas, but there's actually a past George Lucas who was an American soldier. He served on the frontier in Florida, the same place that Disney is, so you can just follow along with the train of thought, where during a fight with the Seminole Indians near Fort Myers in December, he received a wound. He received a wound that would eventually cause his death. And so this man passed away in Florida, and he got during a fight with the Seminole Indians. His name was George Lucas, just signed to deal with Disney, and doing their thing. So real quick, when you think of Disney World, you think of Central Florida, and the American Indians that originally lived in Central Florida, although there were a lot of different types of Indians, those amalgamation of Indians, whether you have the Ayes, Appalachee, Calusa, Timucua, Tabacca tribes, they all formulated to what is presently known as the Seminole Indians, and which means runaway and refuge among the Seminoles. But I don't know if you guys checked out my website when I released an article about the Seminole Indians, and that link sheet will be on the actual. Just click the link in the description and you can get access to that website or that web article regarding Black history and Indian history, specifically centered on the Florida Seminoles. It's a long article with a lot of information, a lot of sourced information. So the Mandalorians were an ancient martial order consisting of members from multiple species, all bound by a common culture. Now, this is the show, the main show on Disney Plus. Like, this is the #1 show on Disney Plus. So just continuing this line of thought: Seminole, Florida, Disney World, ancient battleground, now a place you send your kids to have fun and things of that nature. But the Mandalorians, although they're talking about some space travel stuff, they're actually talking about these actual soldiers that was like ancient martial order fighting. It was a small group of soldiers. It wasn't a lot of them, but they had a common culture, creed, and code. They were mixed, a lot of different people. And this is more, to me, describing the Seminole Nation. They had a specific code. And part of that code, you have the Seminole code talkers, where throughout not just World War II, but throughout the whole military history, there were Native Americans within the Army, and they spoke in particular Native American dialects in order to transmit information. And this was a crucial part to the success of overall, even up to the point of World War II, where they were trying to trick the Japanese and things of that nature based upon the obscurity of Native American languages. So in my article, I just kind of tie in the rebel faction in Florida. And if you watch the Star Wars, if you're a Star Wars fan, you know about the Republic in the Empire. They're really talking about England and Spain, and the Mandalorians represent the Seminole Indians, or the Seminole Black Indians that the Spain had used as their military force, and that actual military force was in Florida. And so this was a lot of military action and activity, minus now where people go to vacation and have a good time. You minus this 200 years and you going into a straight up war zone. So now you can look at the article to deal with that. But let's just look at the actual character who played the Mandalorian. Now, Mandalorian is a group of warriors, but then the actual show on Disney Plus is a story about one particular of these warriors, and his name is Pedro Pascal. And so this was a real spiritual moment, because I know Pedro Menendez. I've heard of that name based upon doing the article. If you read the article, you'll see Pedro Menendez all through it. And Pedro Menendez claims Florida for Spain. So he created St. Augustine St. Augustine is the first settlement of the quote unquote Republic of Spain, or the Empire of Spain. That's the first republic. And his name was Pedro. So tying in the Mandalorian to Florida, and even more so, without a shadow of a doubt, the last name of this man is Pascal. So Pascal, in my mind, I heard the word Di Pasquale. And I was like, Di Pasquale, like, what is Di Pasquale? I've never heard of that before, but it was strong in my mind, right? So this what came up, Pasqua, Florida. Pasqua, but that's not Pascal though, right? Or Pasquale. So, but Pasqua, Florida is the Spanish term that means the flowery festival or feast of flowers. Pasqua, Florida Day is usually celebrated on April 2nd. And this is the day, either, it's the state day. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to see. There was a particular point in here. Okay, April 2nd, I just skipped right over it. The day on which Ponce de Leon first spotted Florida. So, okay, Pasqua, you can say, well, that don't mean Pascal, right? But then, okay. Pascal, right? His name is Pedro Pascal. Pascal is the common masculine Francophone given name for the name Pasquale. And it was the name that I swear Spirit whispered to me, because I swear I don't remember seeing this word in my life. But as soon as I seen Pascal, I made this connection almost instantly. And I don't know what that is. But tied into the same word, though. Tied into the same word. De Pascal, De Pasquale. And give me 1 second. Or somewhere on here. Pascal, Pasquale, Pasquale, Pascal, Pascal, Pascali, Pasha, Paschalis, Pasquale, Pasquale, Pasco. You get the point, right? You can kind of understand where this is going. So if you don't understand, Pedro Pascal literally just means Florida. So maybe they chose him for his acting ability. But if you watch The Mandalorian, I'm pretty sure that the character stays with a mask on the whole entire time. I haven't watched the whole show, so I don't know if he take the mask off and start speaking a lot. But what I saw, he had the mask on the whole time, so I didn't even know that it was this actual guy. So in my mind, I'm thinking like they literally could have put anybody to be this person, but they literally chose a person who's preeminently representing that Florida energy. But you got to stick with me as we go through it, because I'm trying to go through it as fast as I can. Or maybe I should take my time. I don't know. I just don't want to bore you, and I just want to get this information out in a timely manner. Menendez. And this is live, so you know how these kids be. Menendez is another name, just kind of tying in. I just thought of that just to tie it in. Was a free black military leader serving the Spanish crown in the 18th century of St. Augustine, Florida. If you watch The Mandalorian, that just sounds exactly like it. And I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan, so I'm sure they talking in codes, which is kind of what we're dealing with now. But he was the leader of a black militia force, and you probably don't know much about this history because it ain't talked about, but it's actually talked about a lot if you watch the Star Wars, because this particular story couldn't be told about your history. You couldn't particularly just notice. It's just regular history about how Florida was really, really like, you know. So now it's just kind of like this wonderland of, you know, just having fun and kicking it and taking the kids and all of that. But, you know, people was really getting busy. Was created by the black citizens of Spanish Florida and former Carolina slaves to help protect Spanish Florida against military advancements. So, you know, read more about that history in your time. But Disney Plus, that makes me think about Plus Ultra. So we got to connect. For this to make sense, we got to take Disney Plus to Florida. We got to take Plus Ultra to Florida. So, man, I hope y'all on this train of thought with me, man. I hope I don't sound crazy. I hope this makes sense, because if it makes sense, this is really this is really crazy to me. And so I'm just the person that's doing the research. I see the dots and I'm putting them together. So hopefully, this is all making sense and we could get some real questions. You never heard no information like this. But anyways, Plus Ultra, Disney Plus, the big thing of 2019, Disney streaming service, The Mandalorian, so forth and so forth and so on. I got to connect Plus Ultra to Disney, and I'm about to do that. But first, let me connect it to Spain and Florida, okay? Plus Ultra was the motto, which means further beyond, is a Latin phrase and the national motto of Spain. So we've already established Spain and Florida. Florida was the last stronghold of Spain on this continent. So when you think Spain, Florida, Spain, Florida, Spain, Florida, because it wasn't nowhere else when it comes to us in this continent. It's just Spain, Florida, Spain, Florida. So Plus Ultra is the national motto of Spain, okay? So there must be some remnants of this energy in Florida. But what is Florida? What is the fountain of youth? So if we talking about Spain and we talking about, 1516, right? 1516. So Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492. So from 1492 on, they're thinking about America. So Plus Ultra has to be about America, right? But why is on the arch of Plus Ultra is the actual quotation of this? And we got to remember this because this is a pivotal understanding to all of this. If you're thinking about this shit in 3D, it's going to go over your head. But if you think about this shit in 4D, it makes perfect sense. And we can kind of like break this spell once and for all. So all of Africa weeps because it knows that you have the key to be its master. I'm going to repeat that. Plus Ultra, the triumphal arc made in 1520 in Burgos, the motto is Plus Ultra. On the other side, it says all of Africa weeps because it knows that you have the key to be its master. What is that key? 1520. Let's go back to Pedro. Menendez was born in 1519. So this was a goal that was instilled since a youth. Like this was the mindset. When I'm an adult, I'm gonna be a part of the Spanish Navy and I'm gonna make something of myself, And part of that was conquering these lands. And we got to get into that later in the conversation. So Disney has a show. Before we get to that, let's get to this. Let's just cut to the nitty gritty. Cause I ain't trying to waste y'all time at all. Plus Ultra is a secret society comprised of the greatest minds throughout history. Now this is fiction, but I'm gonna show you how the truth is much stranger than fiction. That created Tomorrowland. Their motto is "Tomorrow is ours." It was founded in 1889 by Nikola Tesla, Thomas Edison, Jules Verne, Gustave Eiffel, the Eiffel Tower. It had members like Mark Twain, Ray Bradbury, Walt Disney, and a host of others, I'm sure, by now. Okay? Because this movie ain't old. This movie recent. I think my kids is watching it or something, thinking, I don't know. But in this movie Tomorrowland that's comprised of this secret society, they have like this portal that they're able to. What did this portal do?
Dyson Airwrap uses air to curl and style as it dries with no extreme.
But take my word for it. Read the article and figure out where that portal do. But they created a way to access the fourth dimension. That's why they say tomorrow is ours. And when you think of the Fountain of Youth, La Florida, and what they actually found, and Spain was much more powerful than England. They could have very well toppled the English army at a particular time because they had the Spanish Armada, but they really didn't care about much else but Florida. They finally let it go, and once they let it go, we don't know much about Spain and the history, but if you do your research, a lot of it is there. Now, Tomorrowland, the more important character in this is Disney's latest film, Tomorrowland, is an uplifting story that champions those who believe imagination can better the world. Their only hope is a faraway place called Tomorrowland. As we learn through the film, the wondrous utopia was created by some of the greatest thinkers the world had ever known, mainly Nikola Tesla, joined forces to become a group known as Plus Ultra, which founded Tomorrowland. So, the truth is stranger than fiction. This is fiction. It's just a movie. But Nikola Tesla was an actual person, right? Nikola Tesla ends up dying in 1943, right? He passes away in 1943. And so guess who goes through his files? Dr. John G. Trump, the uncle of Donald Trump. It's well documented in research. I ain't saying nothing that you ain't never heard before. Or if you ain't never heard it before, just Google John Trump and Donald Trump. That's his uncle. He got quotes about him and all of that. So he reported that his analysis showed Tesla's efforts to be primarily a speculative, philosophical, promotional character. So I just wanted to show that he actually did an analysis. So what he say, it don't necessarily matter. So when we read history, we got to think critically because we got to understand the system of the people who's writing it. If I got the opportunity to write my narrative in a particular fashion, I'm going to frame it to make it seem to be whatever you want it to be. So as actual sleuths and researchers, we have to think critical of the person that's writing it, why they're writing it, how they're writing it, and then what's the actual result of it. So you to think nothing else of this actual research. But who's to say within his analysis what he found out when he went through Nikola Tesla's files? So this is fiction as well. But I got to show you how the truth is much stranger than fiction. Back to the Future writer Biff Tannen is based on Donald Trump. So there's a movie called Back to the Future, and there's a character called Biff Tannen where he's able to travel back in time. And so because of this, he becomes hella rich through gambling. He becomes hella rich through real estate, casinos, and he has all of the girls and things of that nature. And it reminds you a lot of Donald Trump. Not only does he act like Donald Trump, not only is it just like he becomes the, part of the government movement and things of that nature, like Donald Trump within the movie. But then the John Trump aspect of going through Nikola Tesla's files, and all you got to know is just do your research on Nikola Tesla to understand he was about that life. So the government going through his property, they disseminated, okay, we can use this. We gonna use everything. We ain't throwing none of this away. All is bullshit. That make a lot of sense. But the truth of the matter is that Donald Trump owns a property in Florida called Mar-a-Lago. And Mar-a-Lago has something interesting about the property. Throughout the estate, which we explored, we kept encountering antique files with the Latin motto Plus Ultra, which translate as beyond the ultimate. This is the Mar-a-Lago slogan. Now, this is Trump, Mar-a-Lago Trump. You hear it on the news all the time. But the deeper mystery, Mar-a-Lago, which could easily be a play on words to the Moors, but I'm going to leave that part alone because I ain't did my research on that. And I'm only going to talk about stuff that I did for research. I ain't put out no videos in a minute because all I've been doing is researching. I've been falling asleep, waking up, researching. So with this, I'm open to any type of criticism or anything to left of what I'm saying, because this is crazy. Of what the shit that I've been researching is changing the way that I'm thinking about life. So, if you gonna pull me back, please, pull me back, because this is a game changer for me. So, Plus Ultra being in the Mar-a-Lago, Donald Trump, but then you got to understand what Plus Ultra represents within the Disney realm. It represents a particular group of people that's ran by Nikola Tesla. So it must be a reason why he got this particular property, probably some inherited knowledge from his uncle, as a particular portal to travel to and fro, because it is a golf course. And if you reference golf courses, then they're mounds. Let's just do a real quick search real quick. So I'm gonna just show you with your own eyes how they really, what these golf courses really about. So Newark Moundbuilder Country Club. If you watch American Gods season 2, the opening scene is exactly a golf course. So this is the science. You just probably don't know about it, but this is how it is. So this is a whole mound complex, like ancient aliens, astronomically designed, with all of the, bells and whistles of supernatural, otherworldly type energy. And what do people do on it all day? They golf. You can't even walk through here because they too busy golfing. You can only see it from a little lookout post, and you can't even feel the energy like you really supposed to. That's, and it's so real that I just want to, like, when I get my bread up, I'm gonna get me a crib like right around the corner, and then when everybody sleep, I'm just about to be there, because that's how strong the energy is. This is Newark, Ohio, and I'm just referencing how, like, these energy portals that reside on the earth, they do exist, but it's called real estate, okay? And some real estate you cannot buy. Some real estate you cannot get to. Certain limitations on our particular energy. So that's just the first part. That's the entertainment part. Now I'm going to get into the legal side of this thing. And this is like in article form, so I'm going to just really try to read through it so I don't take up too much of your time. And this is a larger conversation. I'm going to just try to give an overview of it real quick, so you might not be interested in nothing that I'm saying, or you might be interested in what I'm saying. And so this is a larger question on race. And what is race? And if I ask myself that question, I got to figure out, what it means to be a slave with these, movements, descendants of slaves and things of that nature. Why do we go from Negro, African American, Black, colored, all of these different things, reparations? Why isn't it equal justice? Why isn't it equality? Like, for real, like, I just had that question, as opposed to, hearing what people got to say and what we need to do. And I was more concerned with the why. And this is what I just came up with. So if that interests you, that's what I'm going to be talking about for the duration of this episode. So if that ain't something that interests you, you know what I'm saying? I'm mainly doing this for my wife and my children, so we can listen to this and really deal with this research one day. Because leave it up to public schools and education systems, or YouTube even, they'll be highly misinformed because they're not dealing with quotes and sources or none of that. And that's all I'm dealing with. So moving forward, Nell, Irvin, Painter, The History of White People, a great book. If you haven't, it's like a classic. Like, if you don't got that book, like, you just missing out. Just on history, you know what I'm saying? This is just a great historical book. It teaches you a lot about, it's unbiased. It's just a straight up history of, the world that we live in. If we going always reference white supremacy and things of that nature, then what is that? You know what I'm saying? From a scholarly look. And, she really pins it down. And read that book years ago, and it helped me. But the quote is, although science today denies race and any standing as objective truth, the U.S. Census faces a meltdown. Many Americans cling to race as the unschooled cling to superstition. So long as racial discrimination remains a fact of life and statistics can be arranged to support racial difference, the American belief in races will endure. But confronted with the actually existing American population, its distribution of wealth, power, and beauty, the notion of American whiteness will continue to evolve as it has since the creation of the American Republic. So, the misuse of data. If you listen to Antonio Moore from ADOS, he's always talking about data. There's a real strong article about how data is misused. And data is a lot of times bullshit. If I tell you, yeah, I got $10 million in the bank, that's my data. And I'll show you like a screenshot of $10 million in the bank, and I really don't got $10 million in the bank, then when you check me on those numbers, it ain't going to read. So the certain things that you reference in your arguments for your social movements and you utilizing data, them niggas ain't polled me. And I'm sure they ain't polled you either. So who are they actually polling? Who are they doing the research on? Do they just know everything about you would be the question, which is probably no. We rarely doing these testing polls. So any type of polling, any type of census is only a small grouping of the population. It always has been, and it always will be an estimation of what possibly could be by getting the numbers of people that we could and then guessing the rest. So if you using that as a basis for your movement, you already missing the point. And this conversation ain't about them. It's more or less of the designation of descendants of slaves and the growth of the movement, the recognition of the movement, and then people that you know and love identifying as a descendant of a slave. But have you asked yourself that question, like, what is a slave? And then to have a leader of a movement be a prosecutor is very interesting. In Los Angeles County, you know, the place where they, you know, they sizzling dudes like, you know, on skillets, you know, 3 strike rules and things of that nature. But now you supposed to help it. I'm going to leave that alone. A slave is a legal fiction that only exists within statistics or data, so that's probably why they're utilizing this as a tool. I know I'm not a slave, and I know my listeners and subscribers is not slaves. Nor are they could never be descendants of slaves, because when you think about the pure perplexity of descendants and shit and DNA and how many ancestors you got, that number goes into the billions. So you got to tell me all billion of my ancestors were slaves for me to accept that, or to accept slavery as a biological condition when we live in a system of laws. We live in a land of laws. You hear that all the time. So what do those laws say? What is the language of those laws? Are those laws something that make a lot of sense and they're easy to understand, or are they confusing and trying to trick you into something? But let's talk about it. A descendant is any individual proceeding from an ancestor in any degree. So in any degree represents descendanship. 1,000,000 years ago, you have ancestors that you are descendants of. Have you did your ancestry.com on them though? If they don't have a DNA sample of your actual ancestors, then there's no way they can tell you who your ancestors are. So you got to actually deal with the gene pool of the testing center. And none of the testing centers got a whole selection of the gene pool of all the histories of all the DNA to say you're from this person. If I don't have the source, then I can't judge you against it. So I'm just telling you any old thing and you accept it. The term slave isn't even reference to African people or melanated people or, you know, Asiatic people. In no way, shape, or form. The English term derives from an ethnogram. An ethnogram is just an ethnic identification, meaning that these ethnically, the people that look like this, those are Slavs. And Slavs, because of their nature and the way that they were synonymous with slavery, so much so. The concept of slavery was based upon their actual ethnic background. So unless you're a Slavic, have particular Slavic ancestry, you can't be a descendant of a slave, just period. So back to Spain in 1452. where the whole goal went in reference to the people that was already here. The goal was to invade, capture, vanquish, subdue all Saracens, which is another name for Moors, pagans, which means anybody that's not Christian or a Jew or buys jewelry at the store, and other enemies of Christ, to put into perpetual slavery and take away all of their possessions and property. And this quote is from the Dame de Verses, but there's many papal bulls, all kind of with the same deal. It's okay for you to go over there and take over that land. And when you take over there, the slavery is to be perpetual, meaning that when they have children, their children are going to be slaves as well. And so until that's justified, until that's rectified, until that's understood, we cannot negate the past. We can negate the past because we can do whatever we want. But don't be complaining about how things ain't happening, how things ain't working, and how things ain't moving by the names that you call yourself. If I walked around and called myself a piece of shit all the time, guess how people would treat me? Oh, I'm a piece of shit. Oh, I'm a piece of shit. You understand? So these names and these terms, do we understand the etymology? So this is an article, man. A lot of people identify as African American, but do you know, not until 1989, so maybe 1988 it was cooking, but 1988, previous to that, the term wasn't even a thing. It was actually created. So how could I be something that was created by Reverend Jesse Jackson, the same dude that was standing next to Martin, you know, when that went down? And do your research on that, okay? Do your research on that. And so I'm supposed to self-identify with somebody and be under his group now, because now I ain't black no more. Before that, James Brown said, you know what? We not Negroes and we not coloreds. We black and we proud. So now I'm supposed to do that and wear an afro. And I'm sure the colored thing, they got tired of being called a Negro and things. I'm sure they got tired of being called the Indian at a certain point, because that's a designation as well. An Indian is a designation as well, where you identifying with something that somebody is calling you. You got to understand the problem in that, because if I'm going to identify with the term piece of shit, then I'm going to identify with the piece of shit actions until within being a piece of shit. That's all I'm going to resonate with. That's going to be my frequency. So how deep are we? The Aniyunwaya. The Aniyunwaya. So I'm gonna speak. This section is about me and my sweet great grandmother, Leela Cofield, who told me out of her sweet lips. I used to kiss on her cheek. I was a little baby, you know what I'm saying? So this was my mindset. When you 3, 4, and maternal figures like my grandmother, my great grandmother, my great great grandmother, I spent time with all 3 of them as a baby. They are why I treat my children the way I treat them. They were so sweet to me. But something about what they said, something about the tradition of who they were as Cherokee, never left me. So when things references 1989, where that wasn't even a concept of African American, something that we had to kind of accept, right? By 1989, guess what happened by 1989? Millions upon millions of people from the continent had been not shipped over here, took planes, you know what I'm saying? Charter jets, got on boats, luxury boats, whatever the case may be. It's called immigration. It's called, I'm from Africa, but I've been here for multi-generations. So by 1989, everybody done had sex. So it's very easy to say, oh yeah, I'm African American. You got to really understand that. And I'm only speaking from the perspective of my history, because my dad is from Trinidad, Tobago. Like my dad, my grandfather, my great-grandfather. So that's me. I can't necessarily say I'm African American based upon descendancy, like lineage, like the people that I know. My mama was born here, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, and my great-great-grandmother. And they had a culture, they had a tradition. And that tradition was Cherokee. And I'm sorry if I'm being long-winded, but I'm just trying to explain something that nobody's going to experience. And this is my personal understanding. Is this everybody's story? No. But it's a lot of y'all stories if y'all do the real research and knowledge. So basically, the Moundbuilders are a culture that predates North American Indian tribes. The Mound Builder culture is not some foreign culture that came from, it's just ancestors. It can't be nothing but ancestors if we on the same land. We ain't get shipped here. We did not land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us. Okay? Malcolm said it best. So mainly these tribes of the Mound Builders continued this tradition, Cherokee, based upon their location, Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio, and things of that nature. If you drive around Ohio, if you drive around with me, you will see a lot of mounds, because there's a lot of tradition and just the architecture and the geomancy and the stuff that they don't want you to deal with, the real history, because that's real magic. It's like you can see it, you can feel it, you can touch it. It ain't. You don't gotta go with Jay-Z, Future, and Lori Harvey to Ghana to feel like you touching some roots. Okay. But the Cherokee are called the Aniyanwaya, meaning principal people. They have a rich oral history that began 12,000 years ago. The Cherokee Nation recently stripped citizenship from a majority of African Americans who descended from slaves of wealthy Cherokee Indians before the Civil War. So recently, and this all started with the Dawes Commission. Once the Dawes Commission came, it became a matter of race and skin tone, quite frankly, because that's what race is, skin tone. In origin, like the language that you speak. It's not necessarily biological. I can use my grandmother for example. She has 5 children, all 5 different shades. But if you were to look at it from an ancient, or not even ancient, but just from, if it was 1872, you would say this aunt is white, this uncle Indian, these 3 is from Africa. They come from the same mom. Okay? You could literally say that. If you just took an ancient picture with them, you would just be saying that, not knowing that these is all the same people. And you got family members like that. I know I ain't saying nothing crazy. You just see it all the time. You got kids that look different. They got different skin tones. But this way of thinking of race creates the hierarchy in our minds. And until we deal with that hierarchy in our minds, until we break that spell and deal with the 4-dimensional aspects of this and get out of 3-dimensional aspects of this, we kind of can't. So in order to deal with the 4th dimension, you got to deal with fiction, but we'll get there. That's the 4th dimension, creativity, imagination. Because your creativity and imagination is never mind. So the Dawes Commission, a lot of people who wasn't Native Americans got lands and things of that nature. And, even more so, the thousands of American Indians received a $3.4 billion settlement for reparations. Okay? This was a class action lawsuit. They got their money. Class action lawsuit. All of these links is available in the description. You could do your research and look over them. I'm trying to go through this information as fast as I can, family. Slavery reparations lawsuit in 2002. So in 2002, they already tried to get reparations in 2002. I'll never hear nobody talking about that. But this was in Chicago. 9 different people filed 9 class action suits. They sued financial, railroad, tobacco, insurance, textile companies, and their predecessors and their descendants. You know, all of the companies that had ties to the transatlantic slave trade, they had them cold. They had the data, okay? They amalgamated the 9 cases into one case, took it before the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said no. Okay, you got to amend it. You got to make it right. Then we'll look at it. It brought it forth again without even looking at it. It was dismissed. The opinion noted that these claims raised a political question. A political question is, who going to be the president? I can't go to court and ask that question because the court is a part of the judicial branch. It deals with legal questions like, can I get my half of the rent back or something to that effect? Or who, you know, if you commit a crime, you know, legal situations, or you need to sue somebody. Race is not a political question. Race is not a legal question in the eyes of the law. Therefore, we're beyond the scope of federal judiciary. In addition, the court found that the plaintiffs did not have proper standing. So standing, status, to even bring this question to court. Proper standing is like, I've been explaining this to my wife, and the only example that I got, because it's the closest thing to me, is a pill bottle. No, these ain't no Perkies or Xannies. These is HTP, 5-HTP for dreams. But my pill bottle. So my pill bottle does not have proper standing to go to court because it's not a person. It's a pill bottle. That makes sense. But that's the reason and the rationale for them dismissing the slavery reparations lawsuit in 2002. And my personal opinion is that they classified themselves first as African American, which was maybe they didn't classify themselves as African American, but they classified themselves as descendants of slaves. So legal fiction, you know. Do you know what a legal fiction is? Now, I've been dealing with this word for about a few years. And since all I was doing is researching and studying, I finally figured it out. I said, stop playing, bro. Stop playing. You got to understand this. It's something important to understanding this. I know you beat your head about it every time you try to. It's so crazy how I couldn't wrap my head around it, man. And I fell asleep reading. Once I woke up, I told my wife, like, I felt like I went into a time warp or something. Because now I completely understand what illegal fiction is. So let's just go through this. Because we need to understand this. If you don't understand this, if you already know, and I'm telling it different, or you got experience in law, and I'm saying it the wrong way, in the comments, I'm going to read through this chat. Let me know if I'm saying it the wrong way. Because the people need to know if they being lied to. And if I'm telling a lie, I need to be called out on that shit, because I can't use this platform for lies. You feel me? And if you personally want to have like a debate about this information because it's not true and you want to do it, we can do Instagram Live at any point in time, because I'm just calling it like I see it. Legalese is the formal and technical language of legal documents that is often hard to understand. Meaning when you get those legal documents, they confusing for a reason. The same way as I gave you a document in Spanish, and if you did not know Spanish, you wouldn't understand what I'm giving you on this document, no matter how hard you try. So until you learn the language of legalese, like the real language, like Black's Law Dictionary or the Law Dictionary or something to that effect, it's going to go over your head. Same way if you don't understand Spanish, it's going to go over your head, especially in a document. You might understand Spanish through sight, but if I just gave you a Word document of Spanish and you was familiar with the language, it would be completely alien to you. So that's what this That's what this was to me up until yesterday. It is hard to prove that you deserve rights at the same time claiming to be property. When you reference a slave based upon legal terms, slaves, if you personally knew a slave and you love them, you know them as a human being with the soul, with the heart. That's what we are. We have souls, we have heart, we are people, we are man, we are God. You understand? Like, we are not slaves. But if you want to say you a descendant of or represent with that actual part, you now dealing in the realms of legal fiction. Because you can't view yourself as a pill bottle because you know you're not a pill bottle. But if I need to talk in the legal form, I have to assume that now I'm not a pill bottle no more. I'm a real person. Or I'm not a real person any longer. I'm a slave. That's a legal fiction. And legal fiction is defined. And the shit that pisses me off about the ADOS is that Tone is a lawyer. So if I figured this out, I'm sure he been knew it. He done went to law school. I ain't even on that level, and I'm not even claiming to be that level. I'm just presenting information that I did research on, and this is just my understanding. But it runs contrary to the shit that's being spewed across the internet about, even as a title, is discerning. Or discerning, that's not the right word. It's concerning. I have to use discernment with a lot of people. Legal fiction is defined as believing or assuming something not true is true. Legal fiction is defined as believing or assuming something not true is true. This is used in judicial reasonings for avoiding issues where a new situation comes up against the law. So in the law books, there's nothing about, fingering gerbils. But if you sue me for fingering your gerbil, then now the court has to act within a legal fiction because they're not going to rewrite a law just because I decided. The only way they're going to rewrite a law if everybody start doing it. Now they got to be like, all right, this is enough. Now we got to change the law books. But for the most cases that where there is no specific law, they have to operate in legal fiction. And this is where they have to make certain decisions. They have to deliberate. This is all fiction because you have to trust that this person is objectable and rational and reasonable. But who's the judge of that? How could I just say for this case and these people that they're objectable and rational? You never could do that in the right space of mind. That's why when you see these court cases and certain things, right? Certain things that's clear cut, right? This person did this to this particular melanated young child, right? He shouldn't have done that. But he takes it to court and he gets off on a technicality because of the legalese. Because if I reference it and word it in a particular way, I can do whatever I want to do to property. And that's a harsh reality that people ain't really ready to accept in the titles, in the statuses, in the way that they claim it. They laugh at the Moors all the time, but the Moors say this shit all of the time, and you might not understand how important it is. And I'm not advocating for any Moors in particular. I'm just calling a spade a spade. That's it. I'm not trying to... What I'm saying is not even taken from conversations that I hear from Moors. Is going further into my point. But this overall getting your status and standing in law and it being important and actually being a reason to why you probably getting your head buzzed. Because when you identify with a race, you actually dealing with the concept of slavery and mastership. Okay. Because the reality of the universe is that you're born with shelter, food, love, nourishment. Everything you need is within the universe. You take that away when you adopt a race. Even more so, you can be from North Africa, travel to America, and be darker than me, but still be classified as white, because black and white aren't racial. It's not a legal conversation. It's a matter of politics. And politics is all about government and having a voice in government processes, where the majority has the objectionable, rational mind. So whatever the hive mind majority thinks, that's what goes on. Do you not think that the people didn't realize without all hearts of hearts that slavery was bad? Everybody knew that. But it continued. That's what trips you out. Like, if you know that it's bad, how do it continue? Because it was the law. It's the law. Like, if you, all types of people drive and get drunk and get into accidents and things of that nature. Don't make alcohol illegal. It's legal, so you can do it. No matter how, like, all the time you be driving, be like 8,000 people done got killed in a car wreck in this little spot in the last week. Like, damn, like, all them wrecks be happening. Everybody be texting and, you know, but beyond the point, the law don't necessarily make it right. The majority makes it right. And whatever the majority deems to be objectionable and reasonable and rational is right, even if it's slavery. Okay. And it's not something that I'm just thinking about. It's something that all you got to do is read source books, you know, just read about history. Okay. But then it became hypodescent. And it wasn't necessarily African American up until recently. But the overall idea, if it's hypodescent, means that if you a slave, then your child's a slave. And if you don't correct the status, if you don't correct the status of your understanding, because this is why they do the different names and change the names around. That's the only reason why. So you have no real clue of who you are, so you can only grasp at the next closest thing that makes sense. And when certain ideas and you start waking up, you really start waking up and you start like breaking away, here come a next hashtag movement to get you caught up into something. But when you think about race, it's the one drop rule. If you had one drop or one ancestor that was particular African ancestry, you was considered black, Negro, colored. So what does that even mean? That includes a lot of what's perceived to be white people that are now considered black, Negro, color under law. And we imagine that these things change, but I don't necessarily know if they did, because this understanding isn't well versed and well explained to the point where people are figuring that we absolutely need to be in government if we have the opportunity and chance to vote or to participate in government. And not just me, all of us. You know what I'm saying? If it was a real thing to do and if it really mattered, we wouldn't be all up in the entertainment, in the basketball, in the football, and the this and the that, and the partying and the clubbing and the vacation. Oh, I gotta have fun. I gotta have money and right? Everybody got something to do. Everybody gotta kick it. I ain't kicked it in a long time type. Okay. All right. But when you look at how this game is being played, that might be some. That's an avenue, but I don't see the reality of, 40 million people just saying, you know what, we about to do this. We just gonna come and get our paperwork together and be active in all votes and all governmental processes. We just present. Oh, it's a civil, what they call that? Not civil, but city council meeting. We there. Like it's a goddamn, they releasing the new Jordan 12s, you know, like we there. Ooh, the kids coming too, like everybody coming. What's happening? Nothing, just a city hall meeting. They just discussing the addendum. Yeah, we just go into every we just political people. Cause we know that our attention and effort is not there. But we look at a situation that we have a problem with. And we can have all of the commentary and we can follow all of the pundits, but they not really making no sense. And they already got their own people that they promote, and they got people that they paid off and things of that nature. It's kind of scary when you think about it like that. But, you know, it's just I'm dreaming at this point because I see a solution, but I don't necessarily know if I feel like the only person that sees this solution. Like my eyes is opened a little bit and I know what I need to do. But then again, I can't answer the question for everybody. So I have to kind of just take care of what I can take care of and speak to who I can speak to. And if this message resonates with you and you feel like a lot of people need to hear this, then share. However many views I get, it should be that many shares. Many people on the live, it should be that many shares. Because if it resonates with you, who's to say it ain't going to resonate with somebody on your timeline? The golden ratio is considered to be the ratio of the universe. You are God. You are a reflection of this energy. The golden ratio. And the golden ratio is 1.618. When they did the 3/5 clause or the 3/5 compromise, they said that slaves are 3/5 of a human being. But when you do the calculations, you get 1 over 3/5. So they exclude in that whole one side, which to me is the soul or the God self. And they replacing that one with the, you know, Christian God, and this 3/5 is all you left with. That's my breakdown of it. That's my breakdown of it. It could be something else, but you have to do the sources and the quotes like I've been. They could have called them anything. They could have called you 1/5. Could have called you 1/10. Could have called you anything. 3/5 is a specific word, and that ties into the 666 too. In trigonometry, and you know the mark of the beast, and this overall theme. So all of this ties into the legal fiction. When they said you was 3/5 of a human being, and they gave you the titles and the legalese that went along with that association of being a 3/5 and being 3/5 a human being, you designating yourself to property level in the eyes of the law. So we can understand it being wrong. We know that it's wrong, but have we looked at it from a legal fiction type of way? Do we present ourselves in the whole state 1.618? Or do we present ourselves in the 6.8, 3/5 of a human space? It's not just one, it's 1.618. That's the dimensions of humans. That's our connection to God. And a lot of it is tied into Christianity and the church being the ruling force in our religion. And if our religion is centered in particular slavery, being a slave to God and things of that nature, then our reflection is going to be that. And we see this all the time. We see this all the time. But we don't understand nature and getting back to nature and things of that nature. That's the ultimate solution. Because the legal fiction is something that has to be created when there's no information there. Legal fictions provide us with a reality of the imagination of slavehood, when the reality is much more profound than that. Your history is so much more profound than a little blip that they like to call slavery, but they want that to be the focus. And when you speak to your ancestors as slaves, I think the whole ancestral realm has a problem with that. They have a problem with that. So, you know, Don't let this small part of history be a way to acquire another legal fiction, which come in reparations, which is money. But that's a whole nother conversation. That's a whole nother truth is stranger than fiction. But, you know, the fiction of being Negro, black, and color and things of that nature, these fictional titles need to be let go. Those particular legacies and histories that don't speak to the totality of your understanding need to kind of really be understood as for what they are. And now it's time to level up and present yourself as the God self. You're a descendant of gods. You're a descendant of gods. So, you know, that's all I had to share. I'm going to check these comments. If there's any questions, this is a good time to ask. Guess who's Bizak? ColumbianExchange.com. The freshest drip on the internet. Shirts with a spell is now live. Go to Columbian Exchange with an X.com or click the link in the description. The new line, last place. The last shall be first, but for a limited time only. 20% for all subscribers with the code 2020. Columbian Exchange is back. Get there now. What's going on? Any questions, any comments? What y'all think? I mean, I feel that the white gods are the George Lucases, the Steven Spielbergs, the who else? The Stanley Kubricks, the Stephen Kings, the Philip K. Dicks, and people of that who are able. Like if you look at it from one level, you seeing it like this is crazy or this is just some sci-fi or this is just a movie type deal. But then it's like they able to tell the history if you able to read between the lines. So all of those people that I named, if you got your decoding glasses on, you can watch their films or their projects or read their books and learn a lot about your history. Because creativity is not something that truly exists in the way that you think it is. Creativity exists from your ancestors in their past lives, and your past lives as a understanding. You are your ancestors. So if I had an ancestor that was doing wild stuff, through the mythology of ancestral stuff, you know, you got a crazy uncle that's still, when you look at him in the afterworld or the afterlife, you're not going to reference, like, I ain't going to deal with him because he could be Mercury energy, right? So you might need him to steal some stuff on a spirit. You got that booster on, that transition. You be like, okay, I know I need some gear. You know, let me do something. Let me fry some chicken up. Because you mythologize your ancestors. So when they reference a cosmic war and the space aliens and the UFOs, you ain't never seen that. That ain't never happened. But when you talk about the trenches of Florida in the Indian Wars, they could open up an Indian War book, get a compelling ass story, put, you know, rockets and aliens and lightsabers and shit. You wouldn't even know the difference. You'd be thinking like, man, this dude is a genius. They talking about actual battles that existed. So the people that are able for us to mythologize energy that we know for a fact don't even exist. We put our attention, we don't decode it, we look at it as fact, and it might not be you, but it's a lot of people that look at Star Wars like it's Bible. And Star Wars is a lot of, the Republic and the Empire whooping your ass all day long. And they love it. Do they know what they watching? I don't know. Thanks for appreciate it, man. Just opened up my site back. I love if y'all support me, even if y'all share, on the video. You can't cop nothing, or whenever you do get a couple extra dollars, buy you a little hoodie or buy you a little tea, spend $10 or something, Well, how do you think we should move forward in regards to everything you said? Just curious about what you think the answer is in reference to politics. All right, I got 2 answers. My first answer is that we understand legal procedure as a collective, not just 10 people. I'm talking about at least 100,000 people, 10,000 people, like something a large strength in numbers that simply want to be present. They have no agenda other than to raise the concept of what is objective and what's reasonable. Because the problem is that the dominant majority is operating at an objective, reasonable level. But as their psychology weakens, the whole empire takes effect. The same thing goes for Nero. Nero was an emperor, and he burnt down the whole empire because he was going crazy. Because you can't, a lot of people don't believe in karma. A lot of people think that when you reference karma, they be like, well, what about da-da-da-da-da? They just get away with everything. And it's like, you don't necessarily know the psychology. You don't know what it takes at a sacrifice level, at an intimidation level, at a war and conquest level. The analogy, like to the lion's share, it's like this. You never ever see like a lion just grabbing, like you see a lion get like a gazelle or something, and the lion, you know what I'm saying, devouring a gazelle. You never see like I don't know, maybe like a squirrel come up to the lion like, yo, bro, why you don't share none for us? Like, the lion gonna look at that squirrel like, do you got claws? Do you got teeth? Then you can eat like I eat. So I think that we need to become people. We need to become men. We need to become free. We need to become whole. And the only answer to that is to ratify the Constitution at a legal point. Now, I know people don't believe in the legal system or the governmental process. So whenever I present a legal solution, it's easily dismissed because we don't understand status. So who's to say that people correcting their status and just rebuking and dismissing all slave notion, all property notion, entitled to our understanding and name and being, and then embody it? It's about duties and responsibilities. It's about government. So when they reference the preamble, the first words are "we the people." So this cannot be solved by me doing this research. This can only be solved when people come together with no agenda besides changing the objective understanding, presenting reasonable dialogue to this conversation at its highest levels. You know, a lot of this shit is old boys club, and that really got to change. And if that ain't going to change, it's going to be the same thing. I mean, I don't necessarily ascribe to the white people, black people, if you heard the lecture. It is not to say that there aren't people of European descent, there are people of African descent, there are people of dark skin, light skin, and things of that nature. But I'm from Columbus. I'm not from Columbus. I live in Columbus. I used to live in West Columbus. If you know anything about West Columbus, you can't just automatically just throw people into one bucket because of a racial classification. Because I've seen too much. I've driven the backwoods of Ohio, Portsmouth, and things of that nature. It ain't all fancy dancy. It's a lot of oppression. It's a lot of conditions that you probably wouldn't even want to be in. But if your rationale isn't racist, then you don't even allow that to even exist. So I said this in one of my lives, like, you can't even fathom a white person going through anything. And imagine the lack of sympathy and empathy for a person who might grow up in an impoverished condition from a mom that's possibly having a drug habit and creating these conditions that make it really bad for you. And then you just look at them like, well, you're white, so you're supposed to be good. What I'm saying is that poverty, wealth, class, status, it matters. If I came from North Africa and I had to check a box between white and black, I'm checking the white box. And you look at me, you're going to call me black. But I check the white box because I know that black and white is not a skin color. It is a political status. You can't answer legal questions politically, nor can you do politically in the legal. So a lot of it can be answered. I know this is going to sound really, really crazy, and I know it's going to be misconstrued, and I really don't even want to say it. But if all of us decided to click another box, then no black people would exist. It would be more of understanding of class and the choice and being able to self-identify. That's one of the main things that we're able to do nowadays. And I don't know. Yeah, the bombing of Black Wall Street, that's if you tie the Seminole Indians into it. A lot of those Indians came from Florida, and a lot of the Seminoles were black people. So, or melanated people or people who had very dark skin, the military force from Oklahoma, and they're really like of Spanish descent. So they had a Moorish descent. So they had a lot of this information and a lot of this knowledge. So once they had a little time and space and energy, they was able to tap into the frequency of the land and build a prosperous empire that, it's been war. It's been war for a minute. So it ain't even like, it's not even like a surprise attack. It's just the same war that has been continuing and perpetuating itself from the 1800s on until all the way to 1921. So, and I could go on and on and on. Peace. Yeah, man, it's like, it's melanin, right? Melanin is skin melanin. That's your skin. But neuromelanin that exists like within your pituitary gland, that's the real melanin that people be really talking about. So that melanin don't have nothing really to do with skin color per se. I was just watching this Chinese girl. She had this song called Comic Sans. I don't even know if she was Chinese, but she was of Asian descent. She had mad rhythm and the song was called Comic Sans. I don't know if y'all know the artist, but she had mad bop. Like, I don't know, it was crazy. And you be listening to rap like it was her and Jack Harlow. You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to soul and it comes to things like you can't, and then like melanated people, right? This is where we get tricked up and really flipped up and really confused. A lot of them do not be having souls. You be mad at me if you want, but you can't just look at people by the skin color and just assume that they got good hearts and good souls. We've had plenty of examples. And I'm not advocating for nothing besides truth and objective, reasonable understandings of what's right and what's wrong and what's free, what our duties, what our rights, what our responsibilities. That's what I'm about, is I'm 35 and shit. I wasn't talking like this 34. I didn't feel like this when I was 33, 32, 31, 30, 29, but I'm here now. And so, Exactly. You can't just be like, oh, he don't got melanin, so he don't got a soul. So many different races and so many different ethnicities, all of these things. But thank you guys for joining me. I just wanted to kind of share this information. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Please share this video. Please like, comment, subscribe to my channel. Hopefully it wasn't too boring, but hopefully I get some response and some comments. And then, like I said, if you don't agree with what I said, and it was kind of like something that you want to argue about, we could definitely argue about it. So just email me. We could do that. Email me at hoodmystic@gmail.com. Utilize the links in the description. I appreciate y'all support. I appreciate all the emails, all the comments, everything that I get. Y'all take time out to write a comment. I appreciate all of that. Every little thing I appreciate. One more thing, starting the monthly moon sign readings on Patreon. If you're not a part of that, get a part of that. $5 a month, MP3. Those start tomorrow morning. So all my Patreon subscribers, be on the lookout for that. I appreciate all your support. And I'll catch y'all on the flip.